Okay, good day guys. This is part 2 of standard costing, whereby part 1 was introduction, and then part 2 we are talking about material. As you can remember, in the introduction we said we are going to do calculations on the 3 elements of production, which is material, labor, and manufacturing overheads. So now we are talking about material. Okay, so the first thing you need to know when you talk about material is that you need to know that you have 3 formulas that you are going to use there. Okay, the first one, your focus will be on price. That means you are going to compare standard information and actual information of price. We call it material price variance. So you will say MPV equals to standard price minus actual price. Okay, you're comparing standard price and actual price because our focus is price, multiplied by actual quantity. Now here, okay, you're comparing standard price with actual price multiplied by actual quantity. So here you need to take note, what actual quantity are we talking about? Yeah, here we are talking about actual quantity that was purchased. Because we're talking about price, so we're talking about purchases, right? So please take note of this. When you are talking about price, the actual quantity you are talking about is the quantity purchased, right? The second formula you are going to use when you're talking about material is whereby you are going to calculate quantity, where you're going to compare standard quantity and actual quantity. Okay, so you are going to say MQV is equal to standard quantity minus actual quantity, right? Because we are talking about quantity, so we are comparing standard quantity and actual quantity multiplied by standard price. Now you need to take note. That the actual quantity we are talking about here, when we are talking about quantity, is not the same as the actual quantity that we talked about when we are talking about price. When we are talking about price, the actual quantity we are talking about is the actual quantity purchased. But when we are talking about quantity, the actual quantity we are talking about here is actual quantity used, not purchased, used. Right? So you need to make a distinction between these quantities. They are not the same, right? So when you're talking about quantity, you are comparing standard quantity and actual quantity. The formula is extended. The formula, you have to extend the formula. So how do we extend the formula? Okay, this part, standard quantity, this part, you extend it to this whole part. Okay, so this part you extend, you say standard quantity multiplied by actual units produced. This part is standard quantity multiplied by actual units produced, and then minus this minus actual quantity multiplied by standard quantity, standard price. Okay, so remember, when you're talking about quantity, material quantity, you extend the formula, this part, you extend it to this whole part, right? And then the third last formula for material is total material variance, which is whereby you compare the whole standard side, that is the price and its quantity, we compare it with the whole actual price, that is the actual price and its quantity. Okay, now also you need to take note again. You need to take note again that here this actual quantity, when you are talking about total material, this actual quantity you are talking about is the same one. Is the same one as the one that is used. So quantity purchased is only used when you are talking about price. Right. I hope that is clear to everyone. I hope that is clear to everyone. Now let's go to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide where we are going to concentrate on material price variance. We are going to concentrate on material price variance. Okay. Now quickly, as you have seen from the introduction, standard and actual information will be given to you. Use the information given to you in the formulas. So in the question, you will always be given standard information, you will always be given actual information. The only thing you need to do is to take information from these two and substitute them in the equations or formulas. Okay, so you can study example 3.3 on page 89. All right, but let's quickly do activity 3.4 on page 102 of your textbook. 102 quickly. All right. Okay, so here we are going to calculate material price variance. So what is our focus in that? Of course, we know we're talking about material, but what is our focus? Our focus is price. So that means we're going to compare standard price and actual price. So what is the formula for this? Standard price minus actual price times actual quantity. Which actual quantity is this one? If you remember, actual quantity purchased, because we are talking about price, right? So let's quickly go to that example activity. If you see in that activity you are given standard information. Remember, we are talking about material, so your concentration will be material, not labor, not overheads, only material. So under standard information, let's look for standard price. How much is our standard price? We say 1.5 kg of wool is used at a standard price of 750. So it's 750 minus actual quantity. We say standard price per kg. So this is 750 per kg.
Is that a monster horse?
This is 750 per kg. Okay, and then minus actual quantity. Let's go to actual information. Let's go to actual information. Let's go to actual information and look for anything talking about material. There is actual results. They say was purchased, right? At the price of 3,600. So since we don't need the price for 450 kg, we only need for 1 kg or per kg. Okay, how do we get the price for 1 kg? We take the total we used to buy. Okay, we bought it for 3.6. How many kgs? 450, right? And then multiplied by actual quantity. How much is actual quantity purchased? Remember, talking about price, actual quantity purchased. So they say 450 kg of wool was purchased. So 450, substitute, and then you simplify 750. This divided by this 800, 8 rand, sorry, multiplied by 450. You can see from here inside the bracket whether your variance would be favorable or unfavorable. if you see here, we have standard and actual, and we said in the introduction, when actual is greater than standard, then our variance will be negative or unfavorable. So 750 minus 8 rand equal to minus 50 cents times 450, so we have minus 255 rand unfavorable variance. Right, the moment you see the answer here, when you compare these two ones, the answer is minus. It simply means your variance will be unfavorable. Okay, I hope that is clear. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, now we are going to calculate material quantity variance. You still do study example 3.3 on page 89, the same example, but the activity, we do activity 3.4 on page 102. On page 102, the same page. Now we are doing material quantity variance. What is our focus here? Of course, we're talking about material. Our focus is what? Is quantity. So we're going to compare standard quantity and actual quantity. So your formula will be equal to standard quantity minus actual quantity multiplied by standard price. Now with this formula, which actual quantity is this one? Remember, we said when we are talking about quantity, material quantity, the actual quantity we are talking about is the one that was used, not purchased, that was used, right? And we also said when you are talking about material quantity variance, you extend that formula. Which part do you extend? This part, standard quantity. How do you extend it? You say standard quantity multiplied by actual units produced, okay, and then minus actual quantity multiplied by standard price. Okay, now let's go to the example quickly. So we are still talking about material. What is the standard quantity for material? If you go there under standard information, they say 1.5 kg of wool is used at a standard price of 750. So how much is our standard quantity? Our standard quantity is how much? Is 1.5 kg, right? Multiplied by actual units produced. Go to actual information and check for actual units produced or made. Actual results, they say 600 jerseys were made or produced. So how many actual units were produced or made? 600. Okay, and then minus actual quantity. Which actual quantity is that? Is the actual quantity used in the production. Okay, let's go the actual information. They say 600 jerseys were made using 860 kg. So actual quantity used is 660 multiplied by standard price. How much is standard price of material? It's given 750, and then you do your calculations, you get 900, you get all right. Now you can see from here whether it's going to be favorable or unfavorable, right? Now the company planned to use 900 units, okay, but it actually used 860. That means there were about 40 left. Okay, we used less than we have planned, so it's gonna be advantageous for us because the one that is left, you can use it somewhere else. Okay, so 900 minus 860 is 40 units. So out of the planned ones, we used less, and then we remained with 40 that we can use somewhere else, right? So, and then multiply, and then you get 300 rands favorable variance. So this is 300 rand, guys. Here was supposed to be, there was supposed to be R here. Okay, next slide. So if you remember our formula, we said we are comparing all the standard, we're comparing it with the actual. So the standard price, standard quantity multiplied by its standard price minus actual quantity multiplied by its actual price. How much is the standard quantity? If you go back to the above exercise or the last previous slide, when we calculated standard quantity, we got 900, and then the standard price is 750, right? Minus actual quantity. If you go back to the previous slide, you will see actual quantity was 860 multiplied by actual price. Our actual price was 8 rand. You can see from here whether it's going to be favorable or unfavorable. This is standard, that is planning. This is actual. So when actual, which one is greater? This one is bigger. Okay, so when actual is greater than standard or planning, we're going to have an unfavorable variance. Your answer will be negative. So 6,750 minus 6,880 will give you minus 130 rand unfavorable variance. Alright, okay guys, I hope that was all clear, and thank you very much. The next video is going to be on labor, whereby we explain labor. Until then, goodbye.